ATTE, All-Terrain Tactical Enforcer. The ATTE, or All-Terrain Tactical Enforcer, served as the Republic's first major combat walker and laid the groundwork for nearly every Imperial walker that came after it. Developed by Rothana Heavy Engineering for the Grand Army of the Republic, it was built to haul troops, heavy armaments, and supplies across hostile landscapes during the Clone Wars. The six-legged machine used powerful hydraulic joints that let it move steadily over rugged terrain where repulsor lift vehicles faltered. Its durasteel armor could shrug off small arms fire and moderate explosives, though concentrated bombardment or airstrikes could still penetrate its defenses. Mounted on its back was a heavy mass driver cannon, the walker's main weapon, capable of leveling armored targets and enemy fortifications from a distance. 6 side-mounted laser cannons provided anti-infantry coverage, ensuring that few enemies could approach it unharmed. Inside, the ATTE could house a crew of 3, pilot, gunner, and commander, along with up to 20 clone troopers in its troop compartment. Unlike the towering machines that succeeded it, the ATTE's low, compact frame gave it excellent balance and made it nearly impossible to topple. While slower than many other vehicles, its stability made it invaluable in large-scale ground operations across worlds like Geonosis, Ryloth, and Umbara. After the Clone Wars, surviving units were decommissioned, repurposed, or converted for civilian and patrol use, but their influence endured. The ATTE's design philosophy became the cornerstone of the Empire's all-terrain walker line. AT-AT, All-Terrain Armored Transport. The AT-AT, or All-Terrain Armored Transport, stood as the Empire's most iconic symbol of ground supremacy and terror. Towering over 20 meters tall, it represented Imperial doctrine in physical form: power, fear, and absolute control. Designed and produced by Quat Drive Yards, the AT-AT was a direct descendant of Republic-era walkers like the ATTE, but it traded practicality for psychological domination. Its massive quadrupedal frame could stride across snowfields, deserts, and plains with ease, but speed was never its purpose. The walker's very presence was a weapon, a looming metal beast whose thunderous steps could crush morale before the battle even began. Its reinforced armor plating rendered it nearly impervious to small arms fire and resistant to most vehicle-mounted blasters, requiring concentrated heavy fire or explosives to take it down. Each AT-AT carried a crew of 5, commander, driver, gunner, and 2 operators, along with up to 40 stormtroopers or speeder bikes in its cavernous transport bay. Its head-mounted twin heavy laser cannons and dual medium blasters could obliterate bunkers, armor, and entrenched defenses from long range. On the battlefield, it served as both a tank and a mobile command platform, delivering troops directly into the heart of combat. Despite its terrifying reputation, the AT-AT had flaws. Its height and slow gait made it vulnerable to creative tactics, as the Rebel Alliance famously demonstrated on Hoth, using tow cables to trip and disable the towering machines. Still, the AT-AT remained one of the Empire's most powerful ground assets throughout the Galactic Civil War. Its silhouette on the horizon meant one thing: resistance was futile, and the Empire had arrived. AT-ST, All-Terrain Scout Transport. The AT-ST, or All-Terrain Scout Transport, served as the Empire's fast and flexible counterpart to the massive AT-AT. Built for reconnaissance, patrol, and light combat duties, it was often deployed in support of larger walkers or as part of planetary garrisons where mobility mattered more than brute strength. Standing roughly 8.6 meters tall, the AT-ST was a 2-person machine, a pilot and a gunner seated inside its narrow, elevated cockpit. Its bipedal design allowed it to navigate through forests, city streets, and rocky terrain that heavier walkers couldn't handle. The head-mounted dual-light blaster cannon and side-mounted concussion grenade launcher gave it solid offensive capability against infantry, speeders, and light vehicles. Unlike the heavily armored AT-AT, the AT-ST traded protection for agility. It could maneuver quickly and strike with precision, making it valuable in hit-and-run tactics or as a flanking unit during major assaults. However, its tall frame and narrow stance came with drawbacks. It was notoriously unstable. Traps, mines, or rough ground could easily topple it, a weakness famously exploited by the Ewoks during the Battle of Endor. Despite these limitations, the AT-ST became one of the Empire's most common ground vehicles. Cheap to build, easy to maintain, and adaptable across countless environments, it was the walker most civilians saw enforcing Imperial rule. Wherever the Empire expanded, an AT-ST was usually among the first machines to patrol its new territory. AT-DP, All-Terrain Defense Pod. The AT-DP, or All-Terrain Defense Pod, was one of the Empire's early-generation walkers, developed during the transitional years following the Clone Wars. Unlike the heavily armed combat walkers that came later, The AT-DP was built primarily for law enforcement, border patrol, and security duties on occupied worlds. It represented the Empire's growing emphasis on control and intimidation over full-scale warfare. Standing at around 11 meters tall, the AT-DP was a single-pilot machine with a domed cockpit that offered wide visibility, a notable improvement over the cramped interior of later designs like the AT-ST. Its structure was sleek and lightly armored, allowing for efficient movement across cityscapes and rough terrain alike, though it lacked the protection needed for prolonged combat. Its main weapon was a single heavy laser cannon mounted beneath the cockpit, effective against infantry and light vehicles, but insufficient for major engagements. This made the AT-DP better suited for suppressing uprisings, escorting convoys, and enforcing imperial law rather than leading battlefield assaults. AT-DPs were especially common in the early imperial occupation of frontier worlds such as Lothal, where they served as a visible reminder of imperial authority. Though not as intimidating as an AT-AT, their presence was meant to project power and maintain order through fear. Over time, the AT-DP was phased out in favor of the more advanced and combat-ready AT-ST, but its design bridged the gap between the Clone Wars' militarized engineering and the sleek, standardized machines of the Empire's prime. AT-RT, All-Terrain Recon Transport. The AT-RT, or All-Terrain Recon Transport, was one of the smallest and most agile walkers used by the Galactic Republic during the Clone Wars. Designed for scouting, patrol, and rapid response missions, it functioned as a fast reconnaissance unit, essentially a mechanical cavalry mount for clone troopers. Standing just over 3 meters tall, the AT-RT was piloted by a single trooper seated in an open cockpit. This design gave the rider excellent visibility and situational awareness, ideal for reconnaissance work. However, it also left the pilot completely exposed to enemy fire, a trade-off that underscored the walker's focus on speed and maneuverability rather than protection. The AT-RT was armed with a forward-facing blaster cannon and sometimes equipped with a grenade launcher, allowing it to engage enemy infantry and light vehicles effectively. Its light frame and nimble legs made it capable of navigating terrain that heavier walkers couldn't, from dense jungles to narrow canyons. In battle, AT-RT units often acted as scouts for larger forces like AT-ATs, marking targets, relaying intel, and clearing small resistance pockets ahead of advancing troops. They were commonly deployed on worlds such as Kashyyyk and Felucia, where their mobility provided a tactical advantage in difficult terrain. After the rise of the Empire, many surviving AT-RTs were repurposed for patrol and policing roles, while others found their way into the hands of rebel cells. Their continued use across both sides of the conflict highlighted how Republic technology laid the groundwork for Imperial dominance. AT-OT, All-Terrain Open Transport. The AT-OT, or All-Terrain Open Transport, was a Republic-era walker designed primarily to move troops efficiently across the battlefield. Unlike the heavier assault walkers used for direct combat, the AT-OT served as a rugged walking personnel carrier, built for speed and capacity rather than offense. Developed by Quat Drive Yards, the AT-OT stood roughly 5.4 meters tall and walked on 8 mechanical legs, giving it a spider-like profile similar to the larger AT-TE. Its defining feature was its open troop bay, which could carry up to 30 clone troopers at once, along with a small crew of pilots and gunners. Because it lacked a sealed hull, soldiers could disembark instantly during combat, a major advantage in fast-paced deployments. The walker's armor was relatively light, sufficient to deflect small arms fire and battlefield debris, but not much more. To defend itself, it carried dual laser turrets on the sides and occasionally a rear-mounted cannon to deter pursuit. Despite these weapons, it was rarely sent into frontline engagements, instead operating just behind the main assault to deliver reinforcements or supplies. AT-OTs were heavily used in the later stages of the Clone Wars, particularly on worlds like Felucia and Mygeeto, where their ability to move large groups of troops quickly proved invaluable. They were also often airlifted into battle by LAATC carrier gunships, a dramatic and highly effective method of rapid deployment. Following the rise of the Empire, most AT-OTs were either decommissioned or converted into cargo carriers, replaced by more enclosed Imperial transports that emphasized durability and intimidation over speed and efficiency. AT-ACT, All-Terrain Armored Cargo Transport. The AT-ACT, or All-Terrain Armored Cargo Transport, was a specialized heavy transport walker, designed to carry cargo rather than troops. Developed by Quat Drive Yards during the height of the Galactic Empire, it played a key role in logistical operations, most notably during the construction of the Death Star and in the Battle of Scarif. At first glance, the AT-ACT resembled the classic AT-AT, but its design was tailored for transport duties. Standing over 34 meters tall, it featured a large orange-tinted modular cargo bay in its midsection, which could be swapped out depending on the mission. This bay allowed it to carry materials, containers, or equipment instead of soldiers. To prioritize cargo capacity, the AT-ACT had thinner armor than the AT-AT, making it more vulnerable to enemy fire. It lacked the AT-AT's side-mounted cannons, keeping only a pair of chin-mounted heavy laser cannons for self-defense. This made the Walker reliant on escort units or air support when operating in contested areas. Despite these limitations, the AT-ACT maintained the ability to traverse rough or uneven terrain, using its powerful legs and robust systems to haul massive loads where even vehicles would struggle. On Scarif, these walkers transported vital kyber crystal containers and construction equipment, but their sheer size and power also allowed them to crush enemies or obstacles if necessary. The AT-ACT exemplified the Empire's industrial scale, demonstrating that even its logistical machines were designed with a sense of intimidation and might. ATM-6, All-Terrain Mega Caliber 6. The ATM-6, short for All-Terrain Mega Caliber 6, represented the pinnacle of First Order Walker design. Created decades after the fall of the Empire, it was built for raw firepower, stability, and psychological dominance on the battlefield. Towering over 35 meters tall, the ATM-6 featured a distinctive simian-inspired leg structure. Its thick, knuckled front legs absorbed the recoil of its primary weapon, the Mega Caliber 6 cannon, a massive dorsal energy weapon capable of devastating long-range bombardments. This design addressed one of the major weaknesses of earlier walkers, preventing the machine from tipping over during firing. The ATM-6 was heavily armored with advanced durasteel plating, resilient against concentrated blaster fire and limited starfighter attacks. Along its sides and underbelly, it carried anti-personnel blasters to fend off infantry assaults. A small command compartment atop the walker allowed First Order officers to oversee operations and coordinate assaults. The ATM-6 made a notable appearance during the Battle of Crate, where a line of these enormous walkers advanced across the salt plains toward the resistance base. Their immense size and weight caused the ground to tremble with every step, creating a deliberate psychological impact before the first shot was fired. More than just a weapon, the ATM-6 symbolized the First Order's obsession with scale and intimidation. It embodied the regime's philosophy of overwhelming force, demonstrating that their goal was not only to win battles, but to instill fear in every opponent. Non-canon and prototype walkers. Beyond the main Star Wars canon, numerous experimental and specialized walkers were developed, many appearing in Legends material, concept art, video games, or extended lore. These designs expanded the boundaries of what all-terrain could mean, exploring everything from amphibious units to massive siege platforms. One notable example is the AT-IC, or All-Terrain Ion Cannon. Essentially, an AT-AT modified with a powerful ion cannon in place of its troop bay, it was intended for long-range anti-vehicle and anti-shield operations, capable of disabling enemy armor without destroying it outright. Despite its potential, it never entered mass production due to cost and limited versatility. Another obscure design is the AT-HE, the All-Terrain Heavy Enforcer, a massive command walker meant to act as a mobile base during Imperial offensives. With multiple decks, shield generators, and internal hangars for scout vehicles, it functioned more as a moving fortress than a traditional combat walker, appearing primarily in Legend sources. From the Old Republic era came the AT-XT, or All-Terrain Experimental Transport. Smaller and more agile than the AT-TE, it had dual cannons, lighter armor, and an exposed cockpit, designed for reconnaissance, flanking maneuvers, and high-speed operations. The MTAT, or Mountain Terrain Armored Transport, was another specialized design from Legends. Built for steep cliffs and mountainous terrain, it used magnetic clamps and reinforced stabilizers to scale vertical surfaces, something no other walker could manage effectively. Many other prototypes existed, ranging from amphibious models like the AT-AC to industrial cargo haulers. While most never reached full production or on-screen appearances, they illustrate the Empire and its successors' continuous innovation in walker technology, adapting to every terrain the galaxy had to offer.